Hello everyone, Mike Henderson here again with part 5 of how to typeset your novel using OpenOffice Writer. Now, by the way, I've inserted a blank page at the beginning of the document so that my right-hand page is on the right and the left-hand page is on the left. Just remember that if you do that, which helps to keep yourself straight when you're looking at the fact that now this is actually the binding. If you do that trick, make sure you delete it before you upload your book, because Create Space adds that page. So there'll be 2 blank pages. And we don't want that, so just keep that in mind. Alright, now what this part of the video is about is lining up the text. Because there's a couple things we want to do that helps the book look professional. One is that it always each page starts on the same line. So if you have 2 pages across from each other, they start on the same line and they end on the same line. So for that reason, you can't use what is called widows and orphans. Widows and orphans refers to not allowing there to be a stray line down here, or here. So what it will do is just kind of cut it off. So if you just use widows and orphans, it'll move this line over to here, and that will leave us with a space here. We don't want that. So, and if you take a look at a book, these are details you probably never noticed in a book, but the pages are all exactly the same length. In other words, the text is always exactly the same number of lines, starts at the top on the same line, and runs to the bottom on the same line. The other thing that we want to do here is, since we can't use widows and orphans, we have to go through and manually try to fix it when it appears. So this is okay, I have no problem with this. Because what we're trying to avoid is a stray bit of text at the top of the page in particular. So, and by that I mean something that is not a full sentence. So this bit over here, for example, is a full sentence, or a full phrase, however you want to term this thing. It's only a few words long, but we don't care about that. That's okay. Even if it was one word, even if he said listen or no, it's okay to have that at the top of the page and just up there. But if we go, as we go through, like right here, for example, we may not want that. It looks a little strange. The other thing it does that I don't like is it hyphenates the word. Now you can tell it not to hyphenate the word, and that's okay. But it hyphenated the word because we don't do. I got a separate video on hyphenation, so we don't automatically hyphenate the whole document. We hyphenate it as we need it, or unhyphenate it as we need it. So here we have what would be called a widow and an orphan, and we want to get rid of it. So we either want this down here or we want this up here. And the way you have to do it is sort of go through and look at it and see what you can do. And there's a couple of tricks. So I either want to extend this text by 1 line, and I'll show you what I mean. In other words, I can either, sometimes if you have like a paragraph where you can, by manipulating it, you can make it actually a little longer, and it makes it, instead of 2 lines or 3 lines, it makes it 4 lines, 3 lines or 4 lines. That is one way you will get your answer. So for example, this paragraph here almost is exactly the length of the page, width of the page. So I have some options here to try to make it longer. So I'll show you what I mean. So I highlight it. I want to go to Format, Characters. Not paragraph. I'm going to be formatting the character width. And it's not the width of the character so much, but the spacing. So here I have it. I've already manipulated this a little bit, and I'm not sure there's anything. But one thing, I'm not sure there's anything I can do. But let's just see for a point of illustrating what I'm talking about. Because I can come here. If I go to the Format Character page, this gives me the choice of changing certain things. So I can change the font just for what I've got highlighted. I can change, so I can make it underlined, italics. I can change the font face. I can change the size of the font and so forth. Font effects. We're not worried about that so much. So you can underline it, overline it, strike it out, make it blink, or other nonsense. We are concerned with position. So we want normal position. In other words, it's not a superscript or a subscript. I don't work. I'm not going to rotate it. Now the scale. This refers to sort of the spacing in between the letters. So if I make it less, watch down here, it shows you what it's doing. So watch, it kind of spreads it out. Spacing has to do with in between the letters. So I have a default, which is nothing. I can expand it, or I can condense it. So if we expand it, and I usually do little tiny changes. The smaller the change, the better. So I put in 1/10 of a point, and you can see what it does down here. If you watch it, it manipulates the spacing in between the words. That's what it amounts to. Okay. Now, you see what it did? It made this paragraph longer, so it went down one more line. It's a little spread out, the words, and you will have to make a decision. But it made this paragraph, instead of 4 lines, now it's 5 lines. As Quicksilver is on a line by itself, which is okay. That moved all the text down, which means that this sentence, which was the last sentence, is now the first sentence, and our issue with having a straight bit of text is dealt with. So that's one way to do it. Now we have I'm going to undo that because I already have I've already got this set the way I want it. With a little bit different spacing, so I don't want to screw that up too much. The other thing you can do is you can condense the text. So I have here, for example, the best thing would be if I could get it to work on this line. So I'll highlight this paragraph. I'll go to Format, Character, and if I condense the spacing that's here, this is spread out. There is some room for changing here, so I'll condense it. Again, I'll use just 1/10 of a point, which is a measure of the size of the letter. You can have different measurements, but it's a point, and I'm not going to trouble our heads over that too much. And we say, okay, what does it do? Well, what it did was it turned something that was 2 lines into 1 line, and it had the same effect as expanding it, except that instead of pushing it down to here, it made it all on the same page. So that is the secret to making this look good. Now what I've done, just as an aside, right quick, is I got my book and I had it spaced like this, which is 0.2. So we go to Format, Paragraph, and this is fixed at 0.2 inches, which is referring to is where the cursor is at the page before this. I thought it looked a little spread out, so I redid it, and now if I go to Format, Paragraph, I have it at 0.18 inches. I think it looks better. I think it gives it a more uniform look, but you've got to remember that if you decide to do that, right, which I had to do it in the whole book, if you decide to do it that way, you're going to have to go through and do what I just did on, for every page basically. So that's what I had to do. So and then as you go through, there are sort of good practices, but there's not really a rule. So like this, for example, is not a whole sentence, and I would prefer it if I always had 2 lines at the top or the bottom, and if you look at a book you often will find that, but not always. So you will have to make the decision. Some of the other things you can do, for example, is since you have this paragraph, I have the chapter beginning down here, and it's a good practice to always keep it in the same exact spot. But if push comes to shove, you have some flexibility, so you can, trying to delete a backspace, right? I move this up 1 line. It doesn't look that different. There isn't one across here to compare it to, so you're rarely going to have a 1-page chapter, right? So it's going to be something that you can do if you have to. I would use it as a last resort, and it's not going to be patently obvious to the reader. Then you go down here and you see that it has moved it up, but now we have a stray sentence over here. So I'm not sure that got me anything, and I don't want to do it that way. So I'm not offended by this, and you will have to make your own decision as you go through, because a lot of times whether it's a certain way, whether you follow a certain convention, is really a decision that you have to make. It's called a typesetting decision, and that is a perfect example. Here's another one. Well, it comes a point where you can wrestle with this all day long to get rid of this, and it might not be that big of a deal. And again, I'm not trying to turn you into professional typesetters. If you want a professional, 100% professional job, then hire a typesetter. I had my novel A Beast in Venice typeset. I think it cost me 300 euros, and the guy did a very excellent job. If you want to save yourself a little money, and the point to this is to make it look as professional as possible. But no matter what, when you go through a book, you're going to find sort of compromises. Once in a while they will have to compromise, so you'll find text that is scrunched up a little bit. You'll find text that is expanded. I find even sometimes where the font size is changed on a line just to make it all work. And that is another thing you can do. I don't advocate that, but the point is that you can go through here and tinker with these things and make it look much more professional. All right, that's it. Take it easy.